Ruth Ben-Ghiat is a professor of history and Italian studies at New York University, author of the book Strong Men from Mussolini to the Present. George Conway is a prominent conservative attorney and former Republican, and both join me now. George, people can speculate about the state of mind in all this, but the pattern here is clear. And I thought, what Cassidy Hutchinson relays in that book, where she can't look into his mind either, but what she can say is he's watching them say, hang Mike Pence on TV, and then he tweets that. You can draw your own conclusions about the degree to which this figure views the threat of violence as an actual tool to explicitly wield on his behalf.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people don't take that seriously and don't quite understand it because it's foreign to them. But the two kinds of people, the two categories of people who best understood Donald Trump in 2015 and 2016 were students of psychology and psychiatry, and then students of history like Ruth. And they both come at it from different directions, but they get it to the same place. From a psychological standpoint, the explanation for his behavior on January 6th is that he's a narcissistic sociopath, a psychopath, a malignant narcissist. He's all of those things, a megalomaniac, and all of those things intersect. He wants power. He has no conscience. He feels that he can do whatever he wants and that he's immune from rules. And that's exactly how he behaved on January 6th. And that's what you're seeing now in all of his other threats of what he's going to do if he's elected president again. And the historians look at that from, we've seen these people before in history, and here's what they have done. And Ruth wrote an excellent book that I recommend to everyone. I've been recommending it for 3 years now, Strong Men, that basically goes through what these people are all like from the historical standpoint and how they behave and how they operate. And they operate just like Donald Trump.
Yeah, and one of the things that is striking here at the just sort of day-to-day level, Ruth, is, and Cassidy Hutchinson talks about this, New York Times talk about it, is, if you go after powerful people, right, in a liberal and open society, there's all sorts of things that you might risk, right? You might have career issues, there's reputational issues, maybe you'll get sued for defamation, right? There's a bunch of things. But that's all within the boundaries of a liberal democracy and open society. The thought that you will be hurt, or the people you love be hurt, that's a different kind of thing. And this is what New York Times says. The FBI has seen the number of threats against its personnel and facilities surge since its agents carried out the court-authorized search of Mar-a-Lago, has subsequently created a special unit to deal with the threats. A U.S. official said threats since then have risen more than 300%, in part because the identities of employees and information about them are being spread online. What does this do to a society when this is now just an accepted part of how things operate?
Yeah, it's how we get to the GOP presidential debate, where all of the candidates undercut their own power and humiliate themselves, raising their hands, saying that they would support Donald Trump, who wasn't even there, even if he becomes a convicted felon. This is, the politics of fear. And what you're describing is these are, dynamics that are also typical of corruption, because fear is how corrupt authoritarians get people to do things. But what Donald Trump's been doing, and we can look back at this, is what ever since fascism, all authoritarians do. They try and change the perception of violence in the minds of the population from something repugnant to something that becomes necessary and even morally righteous. And Donald Trump's been doing this through his campaign events since 2015. And so when we cover in the media or otherwise his campaign rallies, his appearances, including going to the gun store, these are radicalization events. And the goal is interesting because today, as January 6th proved, and also January 8th in Brazil, if you can't get the military to cooperate with your coup attempt or whatever you're trying to do, you have a civilian army that you've been cultivating, of civilian thugs. And so that's why there's an end game to this cultivation of violence as well.
I want to, it was a little striking to me that obviously I have to follow what he says on Truth Social, professionally, George. I want to trot out a theory to you. I think, there's back and forth about, back when he was tweeting all the time and he's trying to distract you and live in your head and how much attention should you give him. My general feeling is the sort of expressions of what you call his, malignant narcissism that was visible for all to see on social media really did hurt him in public perception. It was one of the reasons he had such low favorables. And it was one of the reasons that everyone in the Republican Party be like, gee, I wish he would stop tweeting. That he's actually been weirdly aided a bit by sort of receding a little bit from people's awareness, where he's saying, like, yeah, we should execute the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I'm going to come after, like, stay tuned, he says. I'm going to come after Comcast. That is not getting the attention it might have once had because people price it into what he says or because on Truth Social, but he's saying what he wants to do.
That's absolutely right. I think in an odd sort of way, his banishment from Twitter actually helped him for exactly the reason you said.
Yes.
And if I were a journalist being charged with, assigned the task of doing a one-on-one interview with him, there are two approaches I might take. One would be using the cross-examination approach that a lawyer would use, but that's a little bit hard because you're not in a courtroom and he's not under oath. But the other thing I would do is I would sit with him facing me and I'd put a TV screen between us and I would flash up 10 of the most outrageous social media posts that he's issued in the last 3 months or so. And I would highlight different parts of them and say, you said this. Why do you say that? Do you really believe that? Do you and I would just get him to expand and expound upon that. And I think that would draw people's attention that this is the man who actually says this and he adopts all of those things and he means it.
Ruth Ben-Ghiat and George Conway, great to have you both. I really appreciate it.